Catholic Moments, Episode 90, Gina Loehr and Molly Miller.
Blooming, finding joy in the journey and hope in the heaven yet to come. Blooming.
Hello and welcome to Catholic Moments. And now, here's your host and my mom, Lisa Hendy.
Well, hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Catholic Moments, the show from CatholicMom.com, where we talk about all things faith, family, and fun from a Catholic perspective. And we do have some fun this week. 2 great interviews with 2 fabulous women. I know you're going to enjoy them. The first of the interviews is with Gina Loehr, who's the author of a great new book entitled Real Women, Real Saints. And then next up, we'll have Molly Miller, who is from the Runway to Reality.org website and one of the co-authors of the fabulous All Things Girl and the new All Things Guy series for tweens. So I hope you'll stick with us and listen to those interviews. I know you're going to enjoy both of them. They're packed filled with great information. We've got a deacon moment from Deacon Tom, but I want to give you a little personal update before I jump into that. I actually really thought about holding off the recording of this podcast until tomorrow because I have a special event going on in my life this week, and that is the end of my radiation treatments. I'm so happy to announce that tomorrow, Thursday morning, I'll be laying down on that radiation therapy table for the last time, hopefully. Never say never, but for this round of treatments, it'll be my 33rd of 33 treatments. And I just want to thank each and every one of you who have taken this journey with me and who have prayed me through this and supported me through this. Your prayers have meant so much to me and have strengthened me so much during this process. And I have to say that it's been an interesting spiritual journey. I'd say that along with physical healing, there's come some spiritual healing as well. And you all have been a very big part of that. And I humbly thank you for the prayers that you've given me and the support that you've shown to me during this. And I also want to thank you for allowing me to share my journey with you. I have done so because I hope that some of you who are out there who were like me, who maybe are neglecting medical care for yourselves, will take my experience as a motivation to get yourself to the doctor, get a checkup, get business taken care of, particularly you moms out there. We're very good about taking care of everyone else in our lives, but at times we neglect our own self-care. And I certainly was guilty of that and was very fortunate that my health consideration was found early and was not serious. So, that's a blessing because it had been 3 years since I'd been to the doctor and also since I'd had a mammogram. So I just want to remind you that if you're one of those who hasn't attended to your own personal care lately, I would ask you to do that. And again, I really want to thank you for all of your prayers and support. When I lay down on that table tomorrow, I'll be thinking of each of you and praying for you and your intentions as I've done every day for the last 7 weeks during the treatment, and I'm feeling great, and I'm very grateful and thankful for your prayers and support. And one of those prayer warriors who's been an absolute constant in my life is our favorite online deacon, Deacon Tom Fox, who has a great reflection for us this week, reminding each of us to make time for Jesus in our lives. So here's Deacon Tom.
Hello, dear hearts. What a gift to be back with you on Catholic Moments. My wife and I just returned from a visit to Missouri where we spent time babysitting our young grandchildren. What a joy, what a gift. When our daughter Mary, their mom, is home, the pace and intensity picks up dramatically. There are early morning breakfasts to do, household chores, lunches to pack, clothes to be put on, and everyone out the door before 7:30 to get to school and mom to get to work. It's a scene likely repeated in thousands of homes everywhere. What I notice about this is that there isn't much time for relaxation, no room on the clock for quiet time. Even in the evenings, it's tough to do. And it's likely that prayer and meditation is tough to fit in. This scene reminds me of years ago when I was a busy executive in the computer industry. I traveled every week, always on the go, lots of time in airports and rental cars. I'm sure family life suffered. And then one day a call came that my brother Eddie had been diagnosed with lung cancer. He was in a Detroit hospital and wanted to see me. I remember going into Old St. Mary's Church in downtown San Francisco. I didn't really have a relationship with God, with Jesus or his mother. All I knew to do was to light a candle and to pray to some sort of an assumed higher power, asking for healing and relief for my brother Ed. I'd been living in such a way that I tried to fit God into my life when I needed him, rather than building my life around God. And I remember that lonely period when I was so very, very busy and self-important that I didn't have a meaningful relationship with Christ. I was hoping votive candles and visits to an unfamiliar church would somehow heal my brother. Thanks be to God, I've come now to build my life around the Lord, imperfect though my efforts may be. I've thought to share this little story with you in case you are a very, very busy, maybe even a successful person who never seems to get time to spend at the feet of the Master. Jesus spoke to me that he misses you. He's waiting patiently for you. This is Deacon Tom. Blessings.
Thank you so much, Deacon Tom, for that reflection and another great reminder that we each need to take quiet time every day to make time for Jesus in our lives. The busier that I get in my own personal life, the more I find that it's absolutely essential that I build in and actually schedule times during my day for quiet time. And I want to thank you, Deacon Tom, for that reminder and for all of the support that you are to me in my personal life and how much you mean to so many of our Catholic Moments listeners. You can always visit Deacon Tom at www.deacontomonline.com. And next up, we're going to have a little bit of feedback. I always love sharing your email, and we've got a few this week from different venues on the web. The first email comes from my friend in Chicago, Daniel. And Daniel says, "Hello, Lisa. Once again, excellent episode and interview. I'm going to pass on the Phil Linehan tips to my family and friends." And he's discussing, of course, last week's interview with Phil Linehan and the great financial advice that we got from him. And he says, actually, Daniel has a request here, and I'm hoping you all can share, you can help me a little bit with this. He says, "I've got a show topic idea for you. Can you talk about Opus Dei?" And Daniel was involved during high school at a local Opus Dei center and then also attended a summer camp. And he says, could you have a special guest interview with a member, either lay and or religious, of Opus Dei? I do know from my past experience with this personal prelature of Opus Dei that they strive in finding God in daily life. And Daniel invites us to visit the Opus Dei website at opusdei.org. And I do have to say that I don't really have any acquaintance with anyone from Opus Dei, but I am willing to consider an interview if there's someone that you know in your life who feel would be a good representative of the Opus Dei philosophy. I'd love to speak with them, and you can drop me an email anytime, like Daniel did, to lisa@catholicmom.com with your ideas and your connections for the show. Some of our very best interviews come from listener recommendations like this. And next up, I've got a quick note from Wendy on my Facebook. I have a lot of new Facebook friends this week, and I really want to thank you, those of you who have added me as a friend on Facebook. It's a great way to be in touch, and it really helps me to feel like I'm getting to know you a little bit more. And Wendy says, "Hi, Lisa. I wanted to thank you for the airtime you provided for Amanda Vernon. I listened to the podcast today, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity for her to get the word out about her ministry. Thank you again," from Wendy. So thank you, Wendy. And boy, Amanda Vernon is so awesome. I know we're going to be hearing from her lots in the future. So again, connect with me over on Facebook. And we've got another note here, and this is from Gerard, and this is via Twitter. And Gerard says, "Hello, Lisa. I'm a recent listener of your podcast. Great show. Please keep it up. You have a lot of fans, as does Deacon Tom." I think Deacon Tom has more fans than I do. So thank you, Gerard, for listening and for connecting with me on Twitter, which is another one of my favorite ways to keep in touch with listeners. And the last little bit of feedback is actually a show announcement, and this is from an SQPN buddy, and it's Joe McLean, otherwise known as the Catholic Hack. and he's writing to share about a project that he's started, and the project can be found at www.convertobama.com. That's www.convertobama.com, and it's designed to ask the faithful to offer up sacrifices and prayers every day during Lent for the conversion of President Obama. I want the president as well as others to see the power of community and sacrifice come together for the glory of the Lord. And I want to thank you, Joe, for bringing the website together, and we'll have links to www.convertobama.com in the show notes. That's it for feedback this week. We'd love to hear from you anytime. You can email me at lisa@catholicmom.com, drop us a note on Facebook, Twitter, or Plurk. Listen at 4marks.com, at mycatholicvoice.com. And anywhere that you listen to the show, we always love your blog comments. So thank you so much for the feedback. Hope to hear from you again next week. And now, next up, I want to share with you my interview with author and mom, Gina Loehr. Today on our episode of Catholic Moments, we have a wonderful guest, Gina Loehr, and Gina is the author of Real Women, Real Saints, Friends for Your Spiritual Journey, and this is a fantastic new book out from Servant, and I'm so happy to have you today, Gina. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Lisa. Thanks for having me on your talk.
It's really a thrill. I'm a fan of your book, and I want to do all I can to help spread the word about it because it's just a wonderful piece of writing.
Thank you so much.
And why don't you start off by just briefly introducing yourself to our listening audience?
Sure. Well, I have been married just shy of 2 years. It'll be 2 years on April 14th, actually. So I moved from Ohio around the Cincinnati area up here to America's Dairyland. I live on a 600-acre dairy farm with my wonderful husband, Joe, who runs the farm with his brother. And we have a little 10-month-old baby girl, Sophia, who is just an awesome unfolding adventure every day. So our family life is just starting to take on some new adventurous trends with her in the picture. So it's a real blessing.
I can't imagine. And so a newlywed with a new baby and a new home and a new farm and dairy cows and all that. Yeah. I have to ask, first of all, and I know that the book came probably before the baby, but how did you find time in your busy schedule to make time to write this book?
Well, the timing did work out actually pretty well. I started working on the project just after I had gotten engaged, actually. And at that point, I had already moved up to Wisconsin, was actually living with my grandmother at the time as Joe and I were preparing for marriage. And the timing actually worked out pretty well as I was in transition at that point in my life that I had a fair bit of time to focus on the research and on the writing and whatnot. It did get a little bit more complex, though, as the project continued once we were married and I was pregnant, particularly in those early days. The difficulties of pregnancy were a little bit of an extra challenge, but it worked out well. And in fact, I have to say God's timing is very cool because actually my daughter Sophia was born before the book was released, even though I had been working on it for quite a while. She was born in March, and the book didn't come out until July. And I really liked that timing because I think it helped me realize that as wonderful and beautiful as the book project was, wow, it's just not as huge and amazing and miraculous as bringing a new life into the world. So I think that helped me keep some perspective, too.
It is an amazing thing how you think that your life has one course, and then when you do have a baby, it just completely turns life upside down and shows you facets of yourself that you never thought you'd know. And also, I'm sure your relationship with the saints that you write about in the book has changed since then. But let's not put the cart before the horse. I want you to start out for our listeners who haven't read the book yet. Just share with them a little bit more about what they're going to find with Real Women, Real Saints.
Sure. It's, I think, a unique offering as far as saint literature goes because it's a focus on 100 women. So first off, obviously, it's a focus specifically on the women saints and their contributions to church and society and whatnot. But also, I structured the book according to the cardinal and the theological virtues. So the chapters go according to faith, hope, love, prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. And then I categorized the women into those chapters based on a virtue that I thought they really exemplified very well. Mm-hmm. And my reason for doing that was because maybe it's just me personally, but I've always found it a little bit lacking to simply read sort of the dry historical biographical facts of a saint without really digging in to say, what did they do that I can imitate in my life, without digging in to say, how is this relevant for my growth in spirituality? So that was my attempt with the project, was both to give a short introduction to these women. The entries are short, 300 to 400 words each, but also to take each of them and try to really pinpoint a concrete example of living out one of these virtues.
So, Gina, the book is organized in a very particular fashion around the cardinal and theological virtues. Mm-hmm. Tell us how you were inspired to come up with that organizational structure for the book.
Well, it was actually something that came to me as I was trying to formulate how I specifically was going to do this project. Servant Books had approached me and said, we'd like to do a book on 100 women saints, but as far as the actual structure of the book, they left that up to me. And as I reflected on that and prayed about it, I thought what I would want to see from a collection of women saints was something that reflected on how they lived the virtues. So I decided to structure it according to that method, and then as I did my research, to try to pull out, again, really shining examples of those particular virtues that we can use in our own spiritual life as we're trying to figure out how we can grow in those virtues too.
So in the process of writing the book, and I see many of my favorite saints here listed in the book, some of the, the Hall of Fame saints that we think of, but then I'm also newly acquainted with some of the saints that you brought into your chapters. Were there any special saints that you discovered in the process of writing this that you could say a few more words about?
Yeah, absolutely. There were many, many new women that I encountered in the course of this research, partially because I was very interested in including a healthy dose of married women saints and lay women saints to give us a rounded picture of the call to holiness, that, it's not only manifested in religious life and those sorts of things. So in my search for those women, I actually encountered some who just really captivated me in terms of their stories. One, for example, is she's actually not officially canonized yet. She's early in that process. She's declared a venerable, which means that she's officially by the Holy See been declared to have a life of heroic virtue. Mm-hmm. She was a married woman from Mexico, and her name is Venerable Maria Concepcion Cabrera de Armida, otherwise known as Conchita. And she's an awesome story. She was just passionately in love with her husband, Pancho, and I love reading about the way that she tried to show her love to him through the smallest things. Like, for example, he loved going out to see plays and go to carnivals and all this sort of festive amusement, and she really didn't enjoy those things. But out of her love for Pancho, she made a resolution to make it seem as though she was enjoying herself so much that no one would ever question that. And, little things like that, I think, wow, how can I support my husband in the same way? For me, it's probably more like, being cheerful to watch the Packers with him or whatever. But little things that she did to try to make her marriage happy and healthy, and also her love and devotion to her children was just awesome. Something that they said about her after she had died and her cause for canonization was underway was that, all these wonderful things were coming about their mother and how holy she was, and she had this mystical prayer life and all this stuff. And what they said was, saint or mystic, we do not know, but mother, the greatest mother that ever lived. And I thought, wow, that's such a great model for what we should be doing as wives and mothers, is simply living out our vocation with such dedication and love that our children are just literally wrapped up in that embrace. They're just wrapped up in that love, and it's not a primary focus on I'm so religious and I do these faithful things, but it just spills over through the charity in our hearts. So anyway, she was one that I really was impressed with.
I think those messages of inspiration that, in our day-to-day lives, in our houses filled with our laundry and our dishes, that you and I can seek sainthood in our own little ways. And we do have those role models to emulate. So it's so wonderful that you've captured them together in this book. And also through your website, which is realwomenrealsaints.com, where our listeners can go over and check out a compliment, just a beautiful compliment to your book through your blog. Say a little bit more about what's happening at the blog, realwomenrealsaints.com.
Sure. I try to write a little reflection on the feast day of women saints and post that. And then there's some other relevant links and things like that. But another thing that I would encourage folks to take a look at if they're interested, I have posted there on the blog a list of strengths and struggles of the saints. And what I've done is listed a whole bunch of different categories of different strengths that we might want to imitate, like humility, or a life of prayer, or being social leaders, or being in a really healthy marriage, whatever, a whole list of strengths. And then I listed all kinds of different women from the book who exemplify that strength. And I did the same thing with struggles, because it's important to remember, too, that the saints weren't just floating on this holy cloud all the time. They had struggles in their lives, too, and there may be things that we're also dealing with where it's helpful to have a model. So on the website, realwomenrealsaints.com, you can go look at those strengths and struggles lists and see which ones might lead you to a woman who could, be helpful for your own issues.
And it's such a wonderful, refreshing thing that the subtitle of your book is Friends for Your Spiritual Journey. A lot of our non-Catholic brethren are confused a little bit about our relationship with the saints, but really that's what they are. And we do belong to that communion of saints, that family of friends that have gone before us that are there to intercede for us. And we just need to remember to keep them in our prayers and to pray through their intercession. So
absolutely,
your book is such a great tool for that. Again, it's called Real Women, Real Saints, and Gina Loehr is our guest, and you can visit her at her website by the same name, realwomenrealsaints.com. Gina, as we let you get back to your adorable little daughter and those cows,
all right, that's you.
Are there any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with our listening audience?
I would just like to emphasize, as much as it's awesome to look at the saints as models and to try to see ways in which we can try to imitate their lives, just as you were saying before, Lisa, it's so important to remember that these women are our companions, and they are our intercessors, and they are our family. And we really pray that they will be praying for us, and that also we can join them in the blessed glory of heaven one day. That's what it's all about.
It is for ourselves and our families, if we're mothers, or for our fathers out there and everybody who's listening. I want to encourage you to pick up this particular book. It sounds like it might just be for women, but actually it's really not, because we all want to live out the cardinal and theological virtues, and whether our role models are men or women, we all need the saints in our lives. So absolutely. Gina, I just want to thank you for your time, and I want to wish you all the best in the work that you have coming up, and keep us posted, because we definitely want to follow future projects that you've got going on.
Thanks a lot, Lisa.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Next up on this episode of Catholic Moments, I'm so pleased to introduce our guest, Molly Miller. And Molly is a wife, mom, and the creator of the All Things Girl series. How are you today, Molly?
Good, thank you.
So thrilled to have you as a guest on our podcast. I was very happy to be involved in reviewing your products a little bit earlier in the year, right before Christmas. And I'd like to have you just start off by briefly sharing a little bit more about yourself and your family with our listeners.
Okay, I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska. My husband's from Sioux Falls area, South Dakota, so we're Midwesterners. We now live in Wisconsin, up by Green Bay and Appleton, but we're not cheeseheads, just so you know that. We're blessed to have 3 children, 14, 12, and 10, boy, girl, boy. And my dream was to always have a big family, but the rest of my family is in heaven waiting for me, my babies. So I like to always acknowledge that I do have them, and they're always with me. I don't know. I'm just me, and you can ask me whatever you want to know.
Well, along with being just you've put together this wonderful series of books, and it launched really out of your Runway to Reality nonprofit organization. Tell us a little bit more about how All Things Girl got started.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say that it wasn't all me. So there's a team of us working together, which is our publisher, Cheryl Deco from Beslow Books, my friend Monica Miller, and then, of course, Teresa Tomeo, and it became a reality after I had been looking for something for my daughter, who's a tween, and I wanted some books on different issues like puberty and body changes and friends and things like that, and I couldn't find anything that was Catholic, so because I do presentations for girls through Runway to Reality on image-related topics and modesty, I felt that I had some expertise to write a book, and I felt it was God's God's calling. And so I asked Monica, who's my partner in Runway, and she said yes, she would help me. And then we met up with Cheryl, and we had a conference with Teresa. She came to our town, and I told her what I was planning to do, and she said, "Oh, I'll help you. I'll write a chapter on the media." And with that, we started, and that was last April, and we put out 5 books in a journal, and we're finishing up All Things Guy as well. So
oh, good. I was going to ask you about that. That's wonderful. So looking at these books, though, they're very firmly based in theology of the body concepts, and I'm sure that was a conscious decision for you.
Right.
What are you hearing from families that have gotten a hold of the books and are using them with their daughters?
Well, we hear from both the daughters and the mothers, and they both are very happy. They really like the hands-on things and the message of being a daughter of the King, which are mentioned throughout all of the books, ATG. And the moms are really happy to have a tool because there is a really big gap in this age group for materials. You know, there's a lot for younger children, and there's plenty for high school age, but there isn't much to help parents with their children of this tween age. So
it is. It's a difficult age, too, and I know that I love Teresa's involvement because you see so many media images specifically targeting this age. I think they're a very marketed to age group, but unfortunately, most of the messages that they're seeing are things that we wouldn't necessarily want, their little minds being filled with. So it's so wonderful that you've been able to develop these tools that can really get across this message that you have. Now, how can moms who I don't have girls. I have 2 teenage sons, but I see the way that some of their friends dress. And I know that, it's a cultural phenomenon that, these days modesty isn't something that is really talked about. But if you've got a daughter who's, say, 10 and has very strong opinions about things, what's a good way to get started with her on talking about the whole modesty issue?
Well, I would say that the Modern and Modest book would be a helpful tool because there's fun quizzes in there to find out your fashion personality and some other little fun things for them to do. So it's a way for you to open the door. The other thing I'm always talking to my daughter about these things, and I'll give her examples for, let's say we're at the mall or walking in the grocery store and somebody will pass us maybe that has a whole bunch of piercings or a lot of cleavage showing or something, and after the person passes, I'll whisper to her that, you won't be wearing things like that. Or, that's not very modest, is it? And now it's kind of ironic because I've been sort of doing that for a few years that she says it to me.
She's starting to notice those cues herself, huh?
Well, she's my fashion consultant sometimes. Mom, you should pull your shirt up, or she's the cleavage police at our house. So.
Well, that's a good thing. I could use some fashion sense too, so you'll have to share her with me sometime. But just getting back to the message of some of these images and things that our kids are getting exposed to, sort of, I hate to use the word sexualizing, but they're at a very early age. They're seeing, that dating is cool and all this, and how have your books sort of? I noticed that a real trend of virtue and poverty in these, not poverty, purity in your books, and also the fact that it can be cool to be a daughter of the King.
It is so cool.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about that and just kind of some of what went into your motivation in making the books the way that they are.
Well, as you've seen the books, they're very colorful, and when we write them in a language that isn't a mother talking to a daughter. It's like, hey, you need to think about this, girls, or it's very much on their level. The Friends book, you were talking about dating, the Friends, Boys, and Getting Along, I put a section in there about boys, and I just explained that at the age that they should be thinking of these boys as like a brother, a friend. It's fine to do things with your families together, or if you have a a school or a church function where your families are together, and it's fine to have a friendship like that. But it's not appropriate to start thinking of boyfriend, girlfriend. It's not appropriate to go together, text, message, call each other all the time. That's for later on when you are discerning whether or not you have a vocation to marriage, and that's what dating is for. Mm-hmm. So my kids are like, oh, Mom, will I ever get to do that? And I'm like, no, you're not dating. You can have friends and have people over and do things in groups, but I just really don't think that dating in high school and younger is a good idea. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's very, I think that you have to look within your family and look at your kids and what their maturity level is and all that. And also, I love in our house, we so frequently have their friends over to our house to be kind of the hangout house because, you know that when they're in your home and you're opening your home to them and their friends, you know who their friends are, what they're doing, and that needs to start from a very young age, right? Even before your kids are tweens, that you want to be, the home where everybody's always welcome and, that they are happy to come over to your place and hang out so you know what they're doing.
Exactly. They don't know that we're buying all that junk food for ulterior motives. They have to have something that they want to, have or do or eat, then everybody's happy.
Molly, how old are your kids right now?
14, 12, and 10.
Okay, so
I'm in the trenches with everybody else.
Yeah. And is your 14-year-old in high school now, or?
No, he's finishing up 8th grade.
Okay, he's around the same age as my Adam, who's 14 as well, and it is a really interesting age for both boys and girls because they're going through so many physical changes that, and I think we're somewhat surprised that, when our boys do it as well. You expect girls to go through puberty and to have these issues, but when a boy has the emotional charged age at that age too, it can be a little difficult. So tell me, now you mentioned All Things Guy. Is that in the works, and you have plans for that as well?
It's finished.
Awesome.
It's at the printer right now, and today's the 17th. So, probably by the end of the week, you can purchase it. You can go onto the website probably right now and put your name in to be on the list to be contacted, or wait a day or two, and you'll be able to purchase it. So,
and what will readers find with All Things Guy?
Oh, a lot of the same things: saints, virtues, stories. They don't have quizzes because boys don't like those, so we put in some games and brain teasers and mazes. But they also talk about relationships with your family and friends. Vocations is a huge chapter. This is a little bit different because we put everything all in one book, because girls like, ooh, now I have this one, and now I have that. But the more we thought about it, because between all of us involved, we have 9 sons, and so we felt like we had a good pool of experience with boys, and we knew that these boys would not keep track of 5 books or 3 books. So here you go. This is the encyclopedia, the book to end all books for boys.
Well, I can't wait to get my hands on it. I hope I'll be able to see it and review it very soon and help spread the word about the great work that you're doing. So listeners who want to learn a little bit more about the series, both All Things Girl and now All Things Guy, can visit you in a few different places. You've got atgseries.com and also Runway for Runway, is it Runway for Reality? Runway2reality.org. And we'll have links to both websites in our show notes. I know over at atgseries.com is where you can go to actually order the books and materials that you've got. Are there any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with our listening audience about the books, or just sort of about how to implement these precepts within their own families?
The girls series does also have a leader's guide, so if you would like to do a kind of a little girls group, a lot of the girls younger are going to Little Flowers, which is a really sweet group of activities. But if you're finished with all, what did I just say? The Little Flower
Little
group.
Flowers,
I'm sorry.
right?
Then you could start an All Things Girl club, and we have a leader's guide for that. And then there's all kinds of different accessories you can get to go with that if you want to be the mom in charge of that. Also, I just want to say that this book series has gone beyond my wildest dreams, and I feel very privileged that God has used me as part of a group of women who are trying to change the world one girl at a time. And the results that we're seeing in the comments that we are seeing, that it's touching people, is very humbling and extremely rewarding. So,
well, Molly, I want to thank you. Our guest again is Molly Miller, and she and her partner, Monica Copps, have come together with Cheryl Deco and Teresa Tomeo to create this wonderful series. And again, you can check it out at atgseries.com. Thank you, Molly, and best of luck to you in the projects that you have coming up in the future.
Thank you. God bless you.
Well, friends, that is it for this week's episode of Catholic Moments. It was a supersized episode with 2 big interviews. We're going to be doing 2 interviews for each of the next several weeks because we've just got so many great guests lined up to share with you. So I hope you'll enjoy those, and that maybe you can take the podcast and split it into a couple different sections and enjoy it throughout the course of the week. So at some point, I'd love to go to 2 shows, maybe once I finish the book that I'm working on. But for right now, we're going to have 1 episode a week, perhaps with 2 or sometimes even 2.5 interviews. So lots of great people out there doing great things to share their love of our Lord. And you're one of those as well. And so I want to invite your participation in the show. I always love making your voice the most important part of the podcast. You can email me anytime at lisa@catholicmom.com. Drop us a note on any one of our social networking sites that we use, or call our voice feedback line at 206-339-9272. It's my absolute favorite way of hearing from you. And I'd like to close out this week's podcast with a blessing. This is called The Blessing for Midday. I record the podcast right around lunchtime out here in California every Wednesday, and I think of you as I'm recording, and I'd like to ask you to join me in saying this prayer, whether it's midday, morning, or evening in your home. Prayer is wonderful at any time, as Deacon Tom shared with us, and so we're going to pray this blessing for midday. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, for the graces you have generously given us during the morning hours. How ready are we to make great resolutions, and how quick to forget them. Some speak of a noonday devil, but we know you are always with us, ever ready to help strengthen and console. Pardon our faults and accept our thanks for all your many favors. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Until next week, everybody, I hope to hear from you soon, and I hope you have a great week. Bye-bye.
SQPN, leading the way in Catholic new media.